The morning light should have felt like magic, spilling through the lace curtains of the little room I'd spent the night preparing in. Instead of butterflies, though, there was a heavy knot in my stomach, a warning that something was about to go terribly wrong. My dress hung neatly in the corner, pressed and waiting. Makeup sat untouched on the vanity. This was supposed to be my day, but in this house, nothing was ever mine. The door slammed open. Aaron stormed in, jaw tight, fists clenched, eyes blazing with the hatred he never bothered to hide. "Where's the money, Evelyn?" he snapped, not even glancing at the dress. "You blow it all on yourself while my wife needs a new car, while we have real needs." I froze, stunned. "Aaron, it's my wedding day. I saved every cent. I'm not." His boot drove into my ribs before I could finish. The crack of impact drowned out my scream. I crashed into the vanity, glass shattering, perfume spilling across the floor in sharp, stinging waves. White-hot pain spread through my chest, stealing my breath. The door creaked wider. My father stood there, arms folded, smirk curling at his lips like he was watching a play. "Don't ruin her day with drama," he said coldly, nodding toward Lily, my sister, the golden child, the bride everyone really cared about. "If you can't take the pain, maybe you shouldn't have been born into this family." "Dad," I gasped, clutching my side. He broke my ribs." Aaron leaned down, close enough that his breath burned my cheek. "Consider it a reminder. You're nothing but dead weight." Blood filled my mouth, copper and bitter. My vision blurred, but I could still make out Lily in the doorway. Her dress sparkled, her face twisted in disgust. "God, Evelyn," she sneered, "always making a scene. Can't you be invisible for once?" Humiliation seared worse than the pain. My brother wiped his shoe on the rug like I was filth. My father muttered, "Pathetic." Lily fussed over her hair, unmoved by the sight of me crumpled on the floor. Every bone in me screamed as I forced myself upright against the wall. Their laughter followed me, sharp and cruel. "This is my day," I whispered, breath ragged. Aaron smirked. "No, this is her day. You don't get days. You don't get anything." I staggered to my feet, clutching my ribs, staring at the family, who had stripped me of dignity piece by piece. They thought my silence meant defeat. But they were wrong. Something inside me cracked, and then hardened. The tears stopped, the sobs lodged in my throat, and in their place came a cold, dangerous calm. If this was the game they wanted to play, I'd make sure this wedding was remembered forever. Not for the flowers, or the music, or Lily's flawless smile, but for the day Evelyn stopped being their punchline. Every breath was a knife in my ribs, but I slipped out of the room anyway. Their laughter followed me down the hallway, sharp and mocking, each echo carving deeper into me. The pain in my chest was unbearable, yet with every step, it became fuel. I refused to crawl, not anymore. At the end of the hall, I found the tiny bathroom. I locked the door, turned on the faucet, and faced the cracked mirror. The reflection staring back barely looked human, skin drained of color, mascara streaks cutting across my cheeks, blood drying at the corner of my mouth. My body was wrecked, but my eyes had changed. They weren't begging anymore, they were dangerous. I leaned in, gripping the sink with trembling hands. "You will not ruin me," I whispered to the mirror. "Not Aaron, not Dad, not Lily, never again." 4 years, I had been their target, the easy one to break, the daughter who never measured up, the sister left in the shadows. I'd carried the weight of their cruelty like it was mine to bear. But that kick, that smirk, that scoff, they rewired me. I wasn't going to leave this day in pieces. I wasn't going to be their victim, not this time. I stepped into the shower fully clothed, letting the freezing water jolt me awake. My hands shook as I scrubbed my face, smoothed my hair, pulled myself back together. Every bruise screamed, but my mind had never been clearer. By the time I walked out, I wasn't the same girl who had stumbled in. The house buzzed with celebration, champagne glasses clinking, relatives fussing over Lily's veil, laughter bouncing off the walls. No one noticed me. I was invisible again, but for the first time, I welcomed it. Invisibility meant freedom. It meant space to plan. I slipped past the kitchen, past the crowded living room, until I reached Dad's study, his throne room. his control center. The heavy oak desk sat waiting, littered with papers, the strings he used to pull us all like puppets. And for once, I wasn't afraid to touch them. Contracts, business files. Dad's empire had never been built on honesty. I'd known that since I was old enough to read. Intimidation, shortcuts, fear, that was his foundation. And there it was, folder after folder, carelessly stacked evidence, unpaid contractors, shady deals, signatures that looked more like forgeries than agreements. Dad always thought I was too stupid, too broken to understand what went on behind those doors, but I understood perfectly. And for the first time, I realized how much power he had left lying unguarded. I slid a handful of papers into my bag, pulse hammering in my ears. My phone clicked quietly as I snapped photos, each flashless shot a tiny act of war. Aaron's arrogance had left trails too. His laptop, carelessly unlocked, held messages bragging to friends about threats, about skimming cash, about using Lily's wedding to parade stolen wealth. And Lily, everyone's darling bride, was no innocent princess. Screenshots from her tablet showed debts hidden under fake accounts, secret chats mocking her own fiancé, treating him like a gullible prize she'd secured for money and status. My ribs screamed with every move, but with each discovery, the pain dulled. Their cruelty had sharpened me, given me focus. They had cracks, and I was going to split them wide open. I slipped back to my room, silent as a shadow. From the corner, I listened to the house stirring to life. Music floated up, guests arrived, excited voices filled the air. I sat there scrolling through the evidence, my phone heavy in my hand. Every file was a weapon, every screenshot a match waiting to be struck. Then came the sounds I knew too well, Dad's booming laugh, Aaron's cocky voice, Lily's shrill giggle. Once, those sounds would have made me sick. Now they made me smile. Because I finally knew something they didn't. They thought I was weak. They thought I would vanish into the background like always. But I was planning something they would never forget. Something that would burn their perfect image to ash, right in front of the very people they worshipped. I clutched my ribs, whispering to myself, "Enjoy your day, Lily, because by the end, this wedding won't belong to you, it'll belong to me." For the first time that morning, I felt calm, cold, certain. The church bells rang, echoing across town. I stood in the back, ribs bound tight under my dress, each step a stab of pain, but I didn't flinch, not anymore. This wasn't Lily's fairy tale, it was mine. The church swelled with silk and jewels, guests pressed shoulder to shoulder, their whispers dripping admiration, Lily's beauty, Dad's success, Aaron's charm, each word stung like acid. I held my phone tighter, my weapon was ready. The ceremony began. Dad strutted down the aisle like a king. Mom floated beside him, nose lifted, bragging about her golden daughter. Lily followed, radiant in white, her smirk gleaming under the lights. And Aaron, he stood at the altar like he owned the crown. They thought this was their moment. They had no idea it was mine. I sat in the last pew, hands steady, phone linked to the giant projector they'd set up to stream Lily's perfect wedding slideshow. Only, it wasn't her pictures I had cued. The pastor cleared his throat, ready to begin the vows. That's when I stood. "Before you bless this marriage," I said, my voice slicing through the silence, "everyone here deserves to know who they are really celebrating." Gasps rippled across the pews as I lifted my phone and tapped the screen. The projector flickered. Gone were Lily's engagement photos. In their place, Aaron's group chats, bold messages bragging about skimming money, mocking clients, laughing about threats. The room erupted, gasps, shouts, chairs scraping against the floor. Aaron's face drained of color as he lunged toward me. "Wait," I said, louder, sharper, "there's more." The screen shifted again, to Lily's tablet screenshots, fake accounts, hidden debts, conversations where she sneered about her fiancé, calling him her puppet with a wallet. The groom's joy collapsed into fury. He ripped his hand from hers, voice cracking as he shouted, "What the hell is this?" Lily stammered, tried to laugh, but no one else was laughing. And then came the strike that broke them all, Dad's contracts. The forged signatures, the unpaid workers, the tax fraud, Document after document spread across the projector for every investor, every business partner, every so-called friend to see. Phones buzzed, cameras flashed, whispers turned into a roar. Dad bolted upright, face crimson, sweat dripping down his temple. Turn it off, he thundered. But no one moved. Pain teaches trash faster, right, Dad? I said, my voice clear and sharp. Then watch how fast it spreads. The guests turned on him like wolves, investors shouting about betrayal, neighbors whispering that they'd always suspected, the groom's parents storming out, dragging their son with them, leaving Lily sobbing at the altar. And Mom, perfect, untouchable Mom, frozen as her own texts lit up the screen. Messages where she called me garbage, where she admitted Lily was her only real child. The crowd's stares burned into her like acid. Chaos consumed the church, phones recording, voices shouting, my family unraveling in front of everyone they'd ever tried to impress. I walked down the aisle slowly, ribs aching but chin high. When I reached the front, I looked at each of them, Dad, Mom, Aaron, Lily, squirming in the ruins of their empire. I leaned in, my voice low but lethal. You tried to break me, but all you did was hand me the stage, and I ended you. Then I turned and walked out, leaving their screams behind. Outside, the bells were still ringing, but they weren't Lily's wedding bells anymore. They were victory bells,